What most employers don't understand about the I-9 form is that it's the government's way of assuring that the individual who's now coming to work for you is eligible to work in the United States and that they are who they say they are. It's very understandable when an employer knows someone, and I've known Joe for my entire life, and he comes to work for me. Well, just bring me a copy of your driver's license and your social security card and we're all good for the I-9. You really do need to go through the process of assuring that Joe's documentation is valid and that he is who he says he is and he's eligible to work in the U.S. Some of the most typical errors that we find on I-9 forms are: one, blank spots. An employer forgetting to fill in the first day of employment on Section 2. Another change to the I-9 form that we're finding is an error is at the top of Section 2, the employer is required to record the employee's name, their last name, first name, and middle initial at the top of Section 2. That's a change and something employers aren't used to, so we're finding that is being left blank quite often. Anytime that required information is left blank, that is something that an auditor could fine the employer for. It's important to remember that the errors need to be corrected in a very specific manner, or you're just correcting an error and making another error. So for example, if an I-9 has a blank spot on it, you can't just simply fill in, say, the missing date. You have to fill in the date and then initial the change and also provide an explanation for why the change was made and attach that to the I-9 form. Another change would be if the incorrect information were entered into the form. Instead of whiting out the form, what you would do is draw a single line through that error, make the change, initial the change, and then attach an explanation as to why the change was made, when it was made, and who made it. In some cases, we really recommend that the employer complete a new I-9 form for that employee. So we would have the employee complete Section 1, the employer would complete Section 2 after the employee brings their original documentation in, and then we would attach the incorrect I-9 form, the one that was in the file, to the updated form and also attach an explanation as to why, when, and how the changes were made. Our experience with most companies is that there's an error rate of between 50 to 100% with their I-9s. So what that means is if they are audited, the auditor is going to fine them for every single I-9 that has one or more errors on it. Fines for I-9 errors can range anywhere from $110 per form with at least one error on it, all the way up to $1,100 or more per form. So for example, a typical employer with 100 I-9 forms who's audited and the auditor finds, say, 9 forms with errors, that would be a 9% error rate. That employer would be charged 9 times 110 or $990 as the fines for that particular audit. Their next door neighbor also has 100 I-9 forms, but their error rate is 51%. Those fines would then be $935 per form, not the 110 with the first employer, but because the error rate is so much higher, the employer would be charged $935 times 51, and you do the math, it's tens of thousands of dollars. We're often asked by clients, how can you help us before we're audited as far as I-9 forms go? It's important to remember that your I-9s need to be correct whether or not you're ever audited. What we can do as part of our HR risk assessment or separately is review all of the I-9 forms that you have in your possession as an employer, and we will use the same microscope that an ICE auditor would use to review those. We will identify the errors and help you correct the errors if you so choose as a client. We've had fantastic success in identifying and correcting errors before employers are audited, so much so that we can show before we looked at the I-9s, you had a 51% error rate, $18,000 plus in potential fines. After we go through all of the I-9 forms and then help you to fill out your I-9 forms going forward, 0 or minimal fines a result. Well, it's really easy to contact us. The simplest way is to send me an email. My email is frank@drivenhr.com. That's drivenhr.com. We also have a website, which is drivenhr.com, and we have a blog, and that's employersHRadvisor.com, employersHRadvisor.com. And if someone would like to call, my phone number is 585-672-4142, extension 15. And if it's long distance, we have an 800 number. It's 855-672-4142. And again, I'm at extension 15.